Namaskar, hello, and a very warm welcome to CIET NCERT's yet another program. And this is a psychology program for all the students of class 12th. You're watching us on eVidya channel number 12, and my name is Tanvi Khurana. In this particular program, we are going to discuss the topic social influence, conformity, compliance, and obedience. So this is the second part of the same topic, which is social influence. In the first part, we discussed the social influence and group processes and different kinds of groups. So if you have any questions, any queries, then please raise it and share them on our email ID, which is dth.class12@cit.nic.in. There is one more method through which you can connect with us, that is our phone number, which is 8800440559. At this moment, you're watching us on NCERT Official, that is our YouTube channel. In the live chat box also, you can write down your questions, queries and share them with us. Till 4 o'clock, we have a guest in our studio and she'll be answering all your queries. Let me please introduce to all of you, she is Dr. Shalini Prasad. A very warm welcome to you, ma'am.
Welcome. Thank you so much, Tanvi. Thank you so much.
Thank you. Thank you for taking out time, ma'am. We should thank you. Ma'am is from DPS Vasant Kunj, New Delhi. And without wasting any more time, let me please tell you that this is in continuation with the first part. So I would request you to please watch the first part so that you can understand this entire chapter. This is chapter number 7 for all the 12th class students. Let me please ask ma'am, before beginning the second part, would you like to sum up the first part?
Yes. Definitely, yes. Because until and unless we are not making a bridge, I mean, we are not completing it, it is like, we actually find it really very difficult to connect the whole idea.
Yes.
So we will just quickly recap this chapter. As we said, half of the job is done by the Tanvi itself. She has always been anchoring it so beautifully. I always share with my students and my colleagues when I go back to my school that here I feel at home. So much of education happen in terms of me learning at times. Yeah. So when we talk about this chapter, dear students and learners, this chapter is from NCERT, grade 12 and chapter number 7. So when we talk about this chapter, we will try actually starting from the start, that what is that chapter and how we proceed further, because we could not complete the entire chapter. This is so much to talk about the groups, how are they formed and what are the problems that we face while forming the groups. So when we just talk about the few things about the how we actually talked about the various things pertaining to this chapter, initially we said and defined what exactly is a group, how are they formed, what are the factors that actually help us to form the group, because when we say that yes, the groups are an integral part of our life, I think we cannot think ourselves minus the group, because we are everywhere seeing ourselves part of a certain larger organization, so the larger system, because as we rightly said that we are basically the social beings, so we cannot think ourselves minus the groups. Now we also handle a lot of things pertaining to group, that is like what are the factors that lead to the group formation, what are the limitations or what are the problems that we come across. So if you just see the snapshots here, what is a group, we tried defining that, so we will not devote much time in doing this because we have already covered this major portion. After that, we also discussed what are the salient characteristics of the group. Just to name the few, it is always, sometimes the interaction happen direct as well as the indirect, it is a joint interaction. We also tried making distinction between the mob behavior, audience, team, crowd, etc. We tried make a difference exactly how the team are the extended formations of the group, that what is that one thing that makes a group translate into a good team, where we are talking about the synergy, we are talking about the group formations. Why do I form a group? Basically because for the various reasons, and I gave you a mnemonic here as GPS, that is a goal achievement, providing knowledge, information, and the 4 S's, that is security, status, self-esteem and satisfactions of one's psychological and social needs. We also highlighted that what are the conditions that lead to the group formation, that is, one is proximity, similarity, common motives and the goals that actually helps us to form the group. We tried discussing that what are the various stages we generally go through when we try to form a particular group. We also tried discussing what are the group structures, what are roles, how the norms are being formed, how the status is being given when I become the topmost position of a group. Either is it by seniority or is it coming to me because I am expert in that area. And very important topic which we also discussed was the cohesiveness, the we feeling, and that is going to lay the platform for further discussions. That also gave way to the group thing, that is how the identification with the group and the unanimous thought process can lead to the group think. If we see that yes, the group think actually helps us to be unanimous in a thought process, leading to the group cohesiveness, but it also turns out to be sometimes leading to group disasters because there is no room and scope for other people to think in a different ways. There is definitely a distinction between a primary and the secondary group. Something which is there is no choice for you because you're born in a certain family, they become the primary groups for you, whereas sometimes when you join it by choice, they become the secondary groups. There are formal groups, informal groups, in-group, out-groups. There is wonderful concept called as a social loafing, that whenever we are meeting in the groups, there is always a tendency. It has been observed by most of the psychologists and the people around you. You must have also felt that whenever we are meeting in a group, there is sometimes a tendency and a reduction of the individual effort when we are doing some collective jobs, and that's called as a social loafing. Why does it happen? We had actually discussed in detail, great detail, what are the reasons why it happens and how we can really help to come out of that social loafing. So you have to really make each and every member feel very important, the work to be important, and the entire contribution to be of each individual member to make it very, very important. There is another concept called as a group polarization. So dear learners, from this point, now we are actually talking about a wonderful heading and the topics called as a compliance, conformity and obedience. So let me give you a simple example, dear learners. I was asked by my professor, Dr. Shalini, I would, though he said that being a very, very senior person, he requested me, Dr. Shalini, please do this topic because I think that you're really good in this area. Being my senior, I could not say no to my professor, and that's a perfect example of obedience. And when this interaction was happening, Tanvi was being a colleague, she requested, ma'am, आप please आ जाइए because आपके साथ session करने में really मुझे बहुत मज़ा आता है. So that's a perfect example of, we call it as a compliance. Now what is compliance? They're all part of, so whenever we are there in the group, we are talking, Tanvi, what happens is there are certain things which actually we never ever come to know. So my behavior tend to get influenced because I'm the part of a particular group. Log kya bolenge? So we tend to behave, we tend to change our behaviors at times because log kya bolenge? At times the log in physical status, they're not there. Right. They are just, we are just imagining them and then the things are happening. So that's the perfect example when we'll just catch on and roll on with these beautiful concepts called as a compliance, conformity and obedience. So let's talk about what is compliance. Compliance is basically like, how do people comply? Comply is agreeing to somebody's request. Yeah. Now, if imagine a good salesperson comes to you and say that, ma'am, I just need a minute of yours, right? And because I was pretty like non-busy, so I said that okay, there's no harm to it. So he just asking me a minute of mine. And then even if I didn't want it to, I just attended to that request, and that's an example of a compliance, right? Because he or she is just requesting me, which I could not say no to this person because I thought that there's no harm in doing that. There are beautiful examples when we come across, like, I mean, I'm moving in my car and somebody, I see a small child and he's working for maybe the green and saving the green environment. And he says, ma'am, we are actually the great protectors for our environment, and our teacher has asked us to do something, some kind of activation, some kind of a method by which we can actually generate a lot of or promote some kind of a green awareness to our people. So we thought that the red lights are the best ways where we can ask the people not to honk, and in that due process they just gave me one, maybe a sticker or maybe sapling, and I take that with a warm heart and I just put a sticker. There's no harm in putting a sticker, and that's a beautiful example of compliance, because I just simply could not say no to this wonderful child. So that's a compliance. But many times it happens, Tanvi, that even if sometimes I don't want to behave in a certain manner, and log kya bolenge, whether physical or imagine, I just try to keep on doing things what others want me to do it, rather than me adhering to that. For example, we generally, because we are talking to the students, and this cell phone is something which is very, very close to our children as well, right? So when we convey to the children that, children, do you think that yes, the cell phone should not be allowed in the school? They would not, I mean, first and foremost, they might say yes, some may say no, but if they say that more of the yeses are coming, the ones who were in the process of saying no might simply just be quiet at that point of time. Right? And when they said that, okay, just close your eyes and then keep on raising the hands, in that process probably their original response might come, but when they see that the other people, the rest of the community or the rest of the students in the classroom, they're just signing a letter or maybe raising their hands that yes, the cell phone should not be allowed. So I feel that yes, it should be allowed, my behavior changes, my way of responding changes. So that's an example of a conformity. Yeah, so because there's a very, very thin line. So if I am agreeing to a request, it's a compliance. Why does it take place? We'll definitely follow that. And conformity has a norm. So why that behavior happens in the norm behavior, we will also see. You must have seen, Tanvi, the KBCs, right? What happens? So when you're asking the questions, sometimes you're not very sure about your own answers. So what do? आप पूछते हो audience poll. Yeah. So audience poll means you think that the majority is always right. So you tend to just simply fall into that response and you agree to that without questioning, without doubting it.
Right.
So conformity generally has a norm because everybody is doing so. So you don't feel like questioning it.
So in simple words, can we say that we are going with others' opinion?
Yes, yes. It is when you layer certain norm to that. So your behavior. So why, in the very first place, let me check out with you and clarify to you that why are we talking about this? In the whole process, whether I'm complying, whether I'm obeying, whether I'm conforming, my original behavior is getting changed.
Right.
Yeah, so the social influence, that's the role of social influences comes. So when I just simply put it in one line, social influence refers to those processes whereby our attitudes and behaviors are influenced by the real or the imagined presence of others. So compliance is referring to or behaving in a particular way in response to the request made by someone. So Kelman has given us two ways of compliance. One could be the identification, that is influence processes based on the agreement seeking or the identity seeking, and internalization is basically on the information seeking. When we just move ahead to conformity, which means behaving according to the group norms, that is the expectations of other group members. Now these persons who do not conform, mind it, they're always labeled at times. There is always a fear amongst us that, oh my God, if I'll be not agreeing to the people, I might be labeled as deviant people or the non-conformist people. Mind it, just see the spelling there, children and learners. It is not F-I-R-M, this is F-O-R-M. So that's how I teach my students also, that conformity has a norm, form has a norm. So when you are conforming to the norms which is there in the laid out to you, that becomes a conformity, and obedience is a response to the person in authority. Let's check out what is conformity. Now, the tendency to change what we do or think and say in response in the real and the imagined ones. So there was one wonderful experiment, we have it in our textbook, so you can refer it in detail. I'll just give you a flash of it. If you see these two lines here, yeah, the ash experiment, if you see these two columns, one with the one single line and the two with the, the three standing lines again in the second column. And when I asked to check out with the students, out of these three lines, which one do you think is equal to the line which is in the first box, right? So Ash also did the same experiment, and we actually try doing it in the classrooms. So if they give the individual responses, what happens is, and if the most important thing, if I say that put your responses confidential, you don't have to disclose which one do you feel, sorry. In that case, they might give an original responses, but if I say how many of you feel that yes, A is equals to the, as equal to the first column line, standard line. So, if I see that the most of the responses are not going with the A, I might turn my response to the B or a C if I feel that yes, the others are responding in the same way. Most of the people are responding in according to the standard line. So that's the power of conformity, right? Let's check it out. Why does it takes place? So in the size of the group, when I say the size of the group, when people are there and the group size is too large, what happens is, obviously I feel so pressurized that yes, I have to agree with the people, and then I simply change my responses, and then the conformity happens. Sometimes the size of the minority, if the minority size itself is large enough, out of the 10 odd people, even if it is 4 people who are in minority would be considered as a minority if the 6 are agreeing to that. In that condition also sometimes it has been seen that the conformity happens. Now, nature of the task. Why the nature of the task is also one of the major determinant. So, it has been seen that generally when the task is something which is like difficult for the people, obviously they don't want to take risk of putting their own set of opinions, so they tend to conform with the rest of the population. Now, when we talk about this very, very important determinant, Tanvi, public and private expression. Why do you think we have a secret ballot system for the voting behavior?
Just because we don't want to go with others' opinion, and it should be private because
because
everyone's opinion matters. And no, it should not be a herd race.
Exactly. So if I say, for example, my number when I go for casting my vote is 10th number, and I see the ballot system, and if it is not private, 8 people have voted to a certain party.
Right.
Do you think I'm going to wait to really think that yes, I need to vote the party which I think should be, or should I just flow with the 8 odd people? It generally happens that ways. So that's one reason, and that's one of the major when we say pointer for the conformity, because it has been seen that even in these kinds of process, whenever I'm asked to give my opinion as a person in public, obviously the conformity is very, very high. So anything which requires some kind of a confidentiality, some kind of secrecy, some kind of integrity of that kind of an opinion, it has to be the private expression, right? So conformity is always seen in the maximally in when the population is higher and when the people are asked to do it in the public. Now, there are some typical people who tend to conform very easily. And who are those kind of people? So let me check. The people who have a very low self-esteem. ये बोला आप उससे agree कर गए, दूसरे ने कुछ और बोला आप उससे agree कर गए, because you are not very, very sure about something. Generally, I give an example to my students just to simplify things. So if I have not read a certain article, or if I have not or if I viewed, say for example, 10 odd channels for a particular news.
Right.
So I could critically analyze all those incidents in a very, very critical manner. But if I have not seen a single channel, so if the individual A1 comes and says that, okay, this happened, these many people had actually died in the incident, so I would tend to believe on that.
You'll be convinced.
Obviously, you'll be convinced because I am not very sure about myself. So there are some typical people who are very, very like, I would say intelligent enough to make judgments about themselves. They are not very rigid people. They are, their self-esteem is definitely very higher. They are the ones who would definitely not conform very, very easily.
Can we say that they are underconfident?
They are underconfident. That is why we just follow the norms. We just follow what other people are saying. So, yeah, so that's one thing we always keep in mind. So whenever there is some kind of a public opinion that happens, that needs to be very, very strongly regulated, because they are all part of the social psychology. How my group behavior or my voting behavior or my how do I handle the group situations, they're all guided by that. So when we talk about the conformity, that becomes so very close to the people, close to the hearts of maybe the social psychologists or the people who are handling these kinds of group processes. So let's proceed further. So when we talk about personality, this is also one of the major determinant of
conformity.
Now this is the persuasion techniques. We call it as very important. So do you please enjoy this cartoons. When we say persuasion, again, who is persuading you to behave in a certain manner? Obviously, you're complying to people. And see, the beautiful word coming here is foot in the door technique. Will you help me shop for the cake ingredients? Sure. 10 minutes later, will you help me to bake the cake? Yes. Okay. So you keep on increasing because you had actually agreed to a very, very minor thing, as I gave you an example of a salesperson. And believe me, when you are teaching the MBA graduates or the people who are actually into the sales, they are being told that the best part of the sales would be when you are able to sell things even when they don't require them. Yeah. So the another one is the foot in the door technique. Simply says following a smaller request. So you are just, as a salesperson, he or she had actually come to you, very, very, very minor request, and because you are agreed to it, you simply can't say no to it. For example, I mean, Tanvi, you must have also felt that ways. कितनी बार आपके आते हैं free offers, ma'am. We are not wanting anything from you. We just want a minute of yours. Just listen to what we are saying, and you agree. You can't say no to this person because you don't see any harm in agreeing to that. Okay, you just need to listen, nothing else. Now, while listening to it, there's something very interesting that comes to you, and they say that, okay, ma'am, this is a free offer to you. I mean, there's nothing. It's just a free offer. We are doing a campaign, and we are asked to give it to a nearby locality. So they just come and gives you a very, very nice package, and which you find that, wow, I made my day because it's all free.
I got free.
Now another 15 days when you are just into that Saturdays or the Sunday afternoons enjoying your lunch. Now when you see this person again coming to you and you say, oh, I had actually received a gift, and this person says, ma'am, we just want one feedback from you because you had taken. Do you think that you're in the position to say no to this person?
No.
No ways, because you had actually complied to the very, very small request of just listening to what he wanted to say. Now he's increasing feedback, and probably they might engage into more conversations that how this entire product can be really useful to use and things like that.
Right.
So when we talk about the persuasion techniques or the compliance techniques, the first one is a very, very small request, and that's how it works. The next is a door in the face technique. So the barging.
Okay.
I mean, barging means, I mean, you give the largest thing to offer, and then slowly and gradually it comes to a reduction. On the same lines of an example, let's check it out. Okay, ma'am, we are working for the people who are physically challenged, and because you are a very, very soft-hearted person, because the guard bhaiya had actually told this fellow that this ma'am is really going to help you in I mean, actually she'll listen to you, and this person is now eventually in front of you. And he says, ma'am, we have heard very, very great things about you, that you never say no to the people who do these charitable causes. So we have come here with a lot of hope, and we are expecting like 5,000 at least from you.
Okay.
And you're like a bag. Oh my God, 5,000? I don't think so. I can. So बहुत politely आप उनको कह देते हो कभी कभी. I don't think so. I really can give 5,000. Will 2,000 work for you? So this person says, ma'am, 2,500 will be okay for me. So says, no, please, I think the 2,000 is okay. Initially, this person really wanted 2,000 only from you. But because they had actually started, you kept on doing that. In our terminology, we generally say it's a bargaining stuff. But generally, when we talk in the technical terms, compliance, when it happens from a door in the face techniques, starts with a larger request. And eventually keep on short. So you come with some kind of a compromise with the person that, okay, let's settle at least to this level. Okay. And the last is, oh my God, it happens with all of us. Everywhere, all the time. It's the deadline technique. How may people make or really make you comply with the deadline? Last days. Oh my God, as if everything is being on the loss. I mean, it's not never going to come back to you again. So, when I explain this term, that how many actually, so when children go for buying stuff, right? And even we also go for buying stuff.
We do.
It's not that we didn't wanted that, because maybe I needed one pair of shoe. Yeah, it costed somewhere maybe 2,500.
Okay.
But when we actually was strolling it down, I realized that if I invest another $1,000, I can have a second pair, which is the original cost of 3,000.
Right.
Do you think you can really stop yourself for not investing another 1,000 rupees, and you'll actually end up buying that investing the 3,500, which you really didn't wanted the second pair, and the 2,500 was worth enough for you.
Yeah.
And that deadline technique, the last days, and I mean, you can really see all around on the malls and the shopping areas, because of the last date, you comply to the advertisers, you comply to the organizations, you comply to people's requests, just because of that deadline technique.
And this happens all the time, be it
time.
with children, be it with adults. And despite knowing that there's a Christmas offer which will come again in January for the Republic Day offer, but still we end up buying it on Christmas only, despite waiting for another month, because you don't even need it, but you end up buying.
So don't you feel, Tanvi, this is so exciting?
It is.
People who are into advertising agencies, they just try to analyze people's behavior, and they're very, very clear that how they can really make us comply with this deadline technique. So they're all so relevant. And when we talk about psychology on the day one itself, Tanvi, I told you, they're all so close to us. We never realize that, yes, we have all been doing these things, but we are not adding those technical flavors to it, right? So if we just, psychology, if we just try adding it up or catching it up with more technical terms, it would turn out to be as more exciting, because you already know it. You just need to just twin these terms with these technical flavors, yeah? So let's proceed further, dear children. Obedience. Oh my God. You must have seen people, you have to do this, which means there is no ways you can defy a certain order which is coming from an authority figure. So if this banning or not allowing that mobile phone comes from maybe a council, or maybe an authority, the principal, or the highest authority, there is no ways that you can really say no to it. So again, my behavior is getting changed here. So let's sketch out, why do people obey? Very, very important, though there is a lot of text here. So we'll just simply try holding some of the important terms here. When I obey, मैंने थोड़ी किया बेटा, आपने देखा होगा बच्चों स्कूल में कि कई बार बहुत सारी चीज़ें जो हैं आपसे करवा ली जाती हैं, ये कह के टीचर्स बहुत प्यार से, बहुत स्वीटली कह देती हैं कि बेटा it's not in our hands, what do? We तो wanted that it should happen in a certain manner, But what do? We have been asked by the principal madam or maybe some other authority, and then it just needs to be obeyed. So people obey because they feel that they are not responsible for their actions. They are simply carrying out the orders from the authority. And very importantly, just see, authority generally possesses those symbols. So जो ये करेगा उसको एक position मिलेगी, grade मिलेगा, uniform मिलेगा, badge मिलेगा, title मिलेगा, and believe me, it's really difficult for us to resist that. Now authority gradually increases the commands from the lesser to the greater level. So because you had agreed to a certain level, obviously there is no ways you can actually say no when it comes to a higher degree. So once you obey the small orders, slowly and gradually this is going to escalate, and then it definitely needs to happen that way. Now many times the events are moving such a fast speed. You must have seen certain orders are being given. Imagine during the time of riots. I mean, if the order comes that, okay, please handle in a polite manner, handle in a very calm manner, but if they become violent, the order comes from the authority that yes, you can handle and you can use a certain, maybe a stick or something, or maybe the tear gases, and in that ways you don't get real time to think whether you're doing it right or wrong. So it's just simply you follow the orders because it has to happen. That's the power of obedience. Let's proceed further. Very important day. Dear children, you must have seen the relay races. Tanvi?
Yes,
you must have seen. दो अभी फीफा का जमाना है, लेकिन relay races तो पक्का आपने देखी होंगी,
Absolutely,
है ना?
ma'am. Olympics में अभी भी होती है.
Yes. And individual races भी देखी होंगी.
Yes.
Yeah. So एक बहुत important topic आता है हम लोग के इस वाले chapter में, जिसको हम कहते हैं cooperation and competition.
Okay.
Relay races are the perfect and the best examples of cooperation.
Okay.
And the individual races are the best examples of the
Competition.
because you are competing with the others. Yeah. And in the relay races, you are coordinating in such a manner, though again you are competing with the other group. But don't you see that there's a perfect blend and the coordination that happens in the relay race?
Inside the team.
Yeah. So when we talk about these two important terms, dear learners, they're so important in our life. Why do they happen? And what are the reasons that happen? Because we'll end up this chapter talking about lots and lots of conflict resolution because they're so valid and so important these days. Now, how do I give an instructions? As a teacher, if I divide a whole class into smaller groups and say, let me do and see who turns out to be as the first, that immediately generates a lot of competitive feeling amongst the students. But on the second term, when I give an instructions, let's all coordinate and see that how we learn and try to solve the problem. The same problem solution is going to happen, but in a very cooperative manner. So the cooperation is going to generate more cooperation. The people would be less competitive to each other. They will try to learn from each other, whereas when we talk about the competition, yes, a little bit of competition is required to raise your own set of standards. But when we try to equate this cooperation and competition in terms of groups, when they become super competitive, it becomes disastrous because it can end up doing a lot of complications in terms of less of problem solutions. It can actually lead to lots and lots of conflicts among people, right? So they're very important key terms. When we go further, what are the reasons actually that can lead to cooperation among people? Yeah, let's see I gave you an example of a reward structure. Now, how do I design a reward for the people? Reward, when I say that cooperative reward structure is the one which is definitely leading to a lot of promotive interdependence. So everybody is depending on the group rewards rather than the individual rewards. Yeah, you must have seen in the matches also, there are many times when we discuss something about the team also, if you are just lesser, maybe the 2 runs, and you just need maybe you require 5 runs, the more important for the team. So you sometimes give up because you are not in the position to score higher, so you give up to the other person with the possibility, and that's the last ball or maybe the second last ball. So you give up to the other person because you feel that he or she has a better capacity to put a sixer as compared to you, even if your individual gain would be just to earn those 2 runs. So when we talk about these cooperations or the competitive feeling, there is definitely a reward structure which is very, very important, because when we generate instructions to the groups, how do I generate the reward to the group so that it becomes very, very cooperative? Next is interpersonal communication. Many times the reason for the competition among the group happens, reason just because there is no communication at all. My dear learners, just remember this communication is very, very important, because we keep on escalating, क्योंकि हमारा तो communication हुआ ही नहीं, तो हमने automatically क्या कर दिया, हम उसको assume करते गए और last में जाके हमें बहुत ज़्यादा conflict होने लगा. Reciprocity is obviously whenever somebody had actually given you favors in terms of cooperating with you, you feel really obliged कि हाँ मुझे तो उस cooperation को या उस favor को as soon as possible मुझे लौटाना है. So reciprocity means that the people feel obliged to return what they get. Initial cooperation may encourage more cooperation, and it will definitely, the competition in the same way, it is going to ingrain lots and lots of competition. There is another term when we talk about here, very important, is social identity. Though, dear learners, we have actually spoken much in detail about the social identity in a chapter 2, that is the self and personality. There we actually made a distinction between the personal identity and the social identity. So we will not devote much time here. We just simply talk about that how these social identities, they actually derive from the groups we perceive ourselves to be the members of, or are more, they are definitely important to each one of us. And it actually helps us to locate ourselves in the society. So where do I stand? Where is my position? How do I see myself in the larger group? That helps us to understand the concept of social identity. Now, very, very important term that is coming here as intergroup conflict. What is a conflict? Why do we talk about these conflicts, dear children? बहुत आराम से हम कहते हैं we and they. What is we? The moment we understood this concept with the group cohesiveness, ग्रुप कोहेसिवनेस में हमने समझा कि जितना ज़्यादा स्ट्रॉन्ग वी होता है उतना ही कोहेसिव ग्रुप होता है, लेकिन उसके साथ साथ एक बहुत इंपॉर्टेंट टर्म आ जाता है दे, यानी कि जितने ज़्यादा हम स्ट्रॉन्ग वी फीलिंग के साथ बॉन्डिंग में रहते हैं उतना ही स्ट्रॉन्गली हम चाहते हैं कि दूसरा इंसान हमारे ग्रुप में कभी एंटर ना करे. सो व्हेन एवर कॉन्फ्लिक्ट हैपन्स, it becomes very, very problematic situation for the entire society, which we never want, because nobody wants to be in that state of in the conflicting situation. So conflict is a process in which either an individual or a group perceives that others, that is a maybe could be individual or it could be a group also, have an opposing interest. And obviously when I say that my group, we people, obviously that they would never be a great as what we think of ourselves. So they have opposing tendencies, opposing interests, and both try to contradict each other. There is an intense feeling of we and they. Now, why it happens, how it happens, there was, let me share you one wonderful experiment, Tanvi, with you. Sheriff, yeah? Sheriff ने क्या किया, एक summer camp organize किया, right? बहुत होता है हमारे schools वगैरह में summer camp में, and you must have also having very, very fond memories of your summer camps, right? So summer camp में generally जब हम जाते हैं तो एक बहुत normal सा feeling है कि we don't know each other, right? And there is no jealousy, there is no conflict, there is no hatred for each other. We just want to know each other. So he said, see, I can create a state of cooperation, I can create a state of conflict, I can recreate the state of cooperation after creating that conflict. And he demonstrated all that. So what he did was, initially when these people were putting in the different camps, they were all trying to know each other, but he said that okay, so that was happening as an in-group association, so they were trying to get mingle, अपने टेस्ट मैच कर रहे थे, इंटरेस्ट जान रहे थे, अपने whereabouts पूछ रहे थे, and they were trying to make friends. So when Sheriff saw that, he said, okay, now this intermingling happened and छोटे groups अब बनने शुरू हो गए. Let me create them to a very competitive feeling.
Okay.
So what he said was, okay, now this is tent A, tent B, tent C, tent D. different camps में उन्होंने डाल दिया और different problems देने लग गए और different targets देना शुरू कर दिए कि okay, let me see team A works better than the team B and so on. Okay. Slowly and gradually, they became so competitive and going to an extent of name calling and swearing also. That became highest escalation of the competitions. Okay. Yeah. So now he said that, see, I created that conflicting situation. I can undo that and then again can bring them back to the state of cooperation. So what he did was, he designed a program or he designed a problem which was common to all. Okay. And the problem was, उन्होंने सारे tents के पानी के connection काट दिए. Oh. So what happened? Each person from the tent, they thought that why the water is not coming, and obviously that was something which was very important for them to survive. So एक एक करके अब उन्होंने अपने सारे जो पर्सनल इश्यूज थे और कंपटीशन जनरेट हो रही थी वो सब कुछ साइडलाइन कर दिया. सारे के सारे कैंप मेंबर्स जुट गए अपने उस सुपर ऑर्डिनेट प्रॉब्लम सॉल्विंग करने के लिए जो कि था पानी का प्रॉब्लम. देन दे अगेन फॉर्म्ड ग्रुप which was more unanimous because they had actually solved the problem. So that is the perfect example when we say that the conflict, when we'll start talking about the conflict resolution, we will try understanding and that there is something which is not there that we cannot solve it. All conflicts can be resolved, सिर्फ आपकी इच्छा होनी चाहिए और आपका logic काम करना चाहिए. Yeah, so let's understand a simple thing that why the conflict had happened. Initially conflict होने का reason होता है, सबसे बड़ा important role play करता है communication. Okay. या तो communication होने ना दें, so आप अपने preconceived notions के साथ चल रहे हैं, या communication तो है लेकिन altered है, okay. या defiant है या बिल्कुल ही broken communication है, so automatically this is going to lead to a problem. Now when there is no communication, for example, I just give you one simple example what happens in our life, that हम दो दोस्त हैं बहुत अच्छे और झगड़ लिए किसी चीज़ के लिए, है ना, कोई एक इशू आया, हमारा झगड़ा हो गया. अब कम्युनिकेशन बैरियर, एक दिन बात नहीं करोगे, 2 दिन बात नहीं करोगे, 7th डे तो आपका बिल्कुल मन नहीं करेगा बात करने. राइट. अब जब आपने बात करना बंद कर दिया, देन व्हाट हैपेंस, यू स्टार्ट मैग्नीफाइंग एंड ग्लोरीफाइंग द प्रॉब्लम. उसने ऐसे बोला था, 2 साल पहले ऐसे बोला था, 10 साल पहले ऐसे बोला था. सो you start I mean the problem which was nothing has actually, because of the lack of communication, starts getting magnifying day by day, ending up to there is no communication at all. Finish हो गया बिल्कुल ही. ठीक है. अब धीरे धीरे करके हम अपना stand ज़्यादा prove करने की कोशिश, I am right, the other person is wrong. Yeah. So your interest would be very strong and the other person would definitely will be at fault. वो हमेशा गलत होगा. ये एक peculiar nature होता है कॉन्फ्लिक्ट के लिए. सो अगर हमें ये सारी चीज़ें, जिसको मैंने कहा आपका इच्छा और लॉजिक, अगर हम इस लॉजिक को समझ जाते हैं कि कम्युनिकेशन जैसे ही हो जाता है, सो जो भी आपके बीच में कॉन्फ्लिक्ट्स, माइंड इट अगेन आई रिपीट, जो भी आपके बीच में कॉन्फ्लिक्ट्स चाहता है वो ये कभी नहीं चाहेगा कि आप आपस में बात करें, आप कम्युनिकेट करें. सो हमेशा उनकी कोशिश होगी no communication, we will actually be very happy because it is going to prevail, the conflict is going to prevail because you're not getting a chance to explain that it was not that way, is what it actually happened. So you have to, if you really want to end up this conflict, one resolution is work with your communication. Once it starts, obviously it keeps on escalating and there is no end to it. Very important. Why it happens, as I said, lack of communication is very important. Besides this, relative deprivation. आपने देखा होगा, if you don't get water or if you don't get something which you want, you will still work on a compromise कि हाँ कोई बात नहीं. लेकिन जैसे ही आप देखोगे, ओ दूसरे को मिल रहा है, मुझे नहीं मिल रहा है, oh my God, this comparison is going to kill you, and we call it as a comparison and relative deprivation. So deprivation is always a state of, it's psychological state that I am getting lesser, I feel deprived. So even a very, very rich person may feel deprived that, oh, I'm not getting all this. So deprivation is always a very, very psychological state, right? The party's belief that it is better than the other and what is saying should be done. So that is your belief system that the other group is better or it's worst, the feeling prevails in that ways. A feeling that the other group does not respect, वो नहीं करते तो हम क्यों करें? बहुत एक major बड़ा reason होता है. So whenever the groups exist, please make sure that you should be respecting as good as your own group. The other group is equally, if that group is existing, maybe they are different in the opinion, but they also have a integrity in certain ways. So we should respect the other community, class, creed, gender, nation, and that is going to resolve all our issues in our life. Desire for retaliation. One of the major problem with us is हम एक हमेशा दिमाग में बैक ऑफ द माइंड पीछे लेके चलते रहते हैं, ओ माय गॉड उसने ऐसे करा था. सो आप एक ना रिवेंज फीलिंग के साथ बैठे होते हो. कभी भी ऐसा नहीं होना चाहिए. जैसे ही रिवेंज फीलिंग को हमने साइडलाइन कर दिया तो ऑटोमेटिकली आपकी बहुत ही डिजायरेबल क्वालिटीज आनी शुरू हो जाएंगी. यू विल ऑलवेज फील वेलकमिंग फॉर द अदर ग्रुप एंड देन यू विल ऑलवेज कम आउट ऑफ दैट. Another one would be the bias perceptions. I mean, again attached to that, you should not be biased for, I mean, that's a very, very huge term to discuss. So I think we can have the entire one session just based on my attitudes and my prejudices and my stereotypical thinking, how they can actually enhance too much of conflicts among people. Competence of the scarce resources. It has been seen that whenever we have lesser things, जब abundance होता है तो conflicts बहुत कम होते हैं. लेकिन जब भी आपकी scarcity होती है resources की, when you have more feeding mouths and you have less of resources, it is definitely going to generate lots and lots of conflicts among people. Very important point we will also discuss here in the conflict resolution is equity. Equity always says in relation to or in contribution to. हम एक बहुत बड़ा source लेके आते हैं conflict के लिए. मैंने इतना काम किया लेकिन मुझे रिवॉर्ड तो थोड़ा सा मिला, लेकिन उसने तो थोड़ा सा किया, उसको रिवॉर्ड इतना सारा मिल गया. सो जब हम ये कंपेयर करते हैं, ऑटोमेटिकली दिस इनइक्विटी would lead to a problem. So when you really want to work for the structural way or the structural solution, we'll come to that as well. Because this is the crux. Ultimately we say that, okay, please handle this conflict very nicely. This can be resolved. There's nothing in this, on this planet that we cannot resolve a conflict. Everything is possible if we are working with the clear heart and a very logical mind, and we can really come out of the. So let's start talking about the first way of resolution. Now, as I said, शेरिफ को याद कीजिए, उसने पानी का पाइप काट दिया था, कनेक्शन काट दिया था, तो वो सबके लिए कॉमन गोल था, उसको हम सुपर ऑर्डिनेट गोल कहते हैं. तो सबसे पहले जो इम्पोर्टेंट है वो ऐसा आप गोल दे दीजिए लोगों को, तो वो अपनी छोटी छोटी पेटी इश्यूज जो है वो ऑटोमेटिकली खत्म कर देंगे और हमेशा एक ग्रुप गोल्स के लिए बात करेंगे. नेक्स्ट इज वेरी इंपॉर्टेंट इज इंटरग्रुप कॉन्टेक्ट. सबसे बड़ी प्रॉब्लम क्या थी? कम्युनिकेशन की. तो कम्युनिकेशन जहाँ खत्म हुआ तो ऑटोमेटिकली प्लीज अलाउ देम टू कम क्लोजर टू ईच अदर, अलाउ देम टू बी इन टच विद ईच अदर, अलाउ देम टू बी इन कॉन्टैक्ट विद ईच अदर. रीड्रॉइंग द ग्रुप बाउंड्रीज. सो जैसे ही आपने बाउंड्रीज ड्रॉ कर दी, ये मेरा ग्रुप, ये उसका ग्रुप, ये तेरा ग्रुप, ये फोर्थ पर्सन का ग्रुप, please don't let it happen. Yes, the group should exist because they have the difference of opinion, but they also have a different ways to proceed. That should not lead to the conflict at all. Very important, engage into a negotiation skill. जब भी झगड़ा होता है हम हमेशा न्यूट्रल इंसान को लेके आते हैं, राइट? और वो न्यूट्रल इंसान क्या होता है? या तो वो मीडिएटर होता है वो, या आर्बिट्रेटर होता है. सो नेगोशिएट करते हैं, अच्छा आपकी बात हमने सुन ली, आपकी बात सुन ली, सो दोनों को हम मीडिएट कर देते हैं और कहते हैं अब मेरी बात सुनो, वी आर जस्ट ट्राइंग टू फिनिश इट ऑफ, एंड देन द सिचुएशन टर्न्स आउट टू बी इन द कंट्रोल एंड द कॉन्फ्लिक्ट्स कम टू रेजोल्यूशन. लास्ट इज द आर्बिट्रेशन. अब झगड़े की बात बंद करिए, मेरी बात सुनिए. सो द पर्सन एक्चुअली कम्स इनटू द कॉम्प्रोमाइज ऑफ दिस न्यूट्रल पार्टी. Last but not the least, the most important conflict resolution, I would say the structural solution. याद कीजिए, अगर मैं आपको फाइनेंसेस हैंडल करने के लिए कहती हूँ अपने घर के, तो आप क्या चीज़ों को ध्यान रखोगे? जिसको सबसे ज़्यादा नीड की ज़रूरत है आप उसको भी दोगे, जो सबसे ज़्यादा कंट्रीब्यूशन करता है उसको भी ध्यान रखोगे. तो हम तीन पिलर्स पे हमारी कॉन्फ्लिक्ट रेजोल्यूशन काम करती है. एक होती है नीड बेस्ड, इक्वालिटी बेस्ड एंड इक्विटी बेस्ड. सो नीड इज समथिंग which is like if somebody is really needy of, आपको उसका भी ध्यान रखना है. Equality means you always have to keep in mind as the subordinate, I mean the head of the family or the head of the institution, you should always be treating everybody equally rather than creating the biases among people, and the equity is in proportion to. So whoever is contributing into that, so if somebody is working very hard to gain something, obviously should be rewarded in that promotion. And last but not the least, please respect each other. Respect everyone, respect each group, and that's the beautiful side of conflict resolution, Tanvi.
Absolutely.
Hope I'm able to convey myself.
Yes, you've conveyed yourself pretty nicely and openly, and the last point was actually the basis of the whole conversation.
Yeah.
We need to respect each other, we need to respect each other's choices, options,
Yes.
and we need to work together. Like ma'am said, that communication is the reason of conflict and communication is the solution as well. So please talk to your fellows and talk to your friends. Let's not have any conflicts between us, and
Yes.
let's live a peaceful and healthy
Yes,
life.
yes.
Thank you so much, ma'am, for clarifying this entire chapter, social influence, and now it's making a lot of sense actually that you know how conflicts arise and how actually we can solve
We
them.
can resolve them.
Yes.
Definitely, Tanvi. I mean, everything is possible. There's no conflict on this planet which we cannot resolve. So if we just follow certain ways and the norms, obviously it is going to happen.
Sure. Thank you so much, ma'am, for giving us your time.
Thank you so much. It's indeed my pleasure, Tanvi.
Thank you. Thank you to all the children for watching this session. If you are psychology students, you will love this entire chapter. You will love the way ma'am performed it. The ma'am explained each and everything of social influence. Well, today we learned about compliance, conformity and obedience. And very rightly she mentioned that it is not FIRM firm, which is conformity, but it is conformity. FORM. That actually clarifies the entire word and makes a lot of sense. We also understood cooperation and competition. She gave various examples of how we can cooperate and compete with each other. And there's nothing better than solving our conflicts between each other. If you have fought with your friend for any reason, please go and talk and resolve all the conflicts you can. Thank you so much, and it was a wonderful program. If in case you have missed it, watch it again on NCRT Official. That is our YouTube channel. My name is Tanvi Khurana, and we are wrapping up this particular program, all the programs of today here itself. But on Monday, we'll come back again with more subjects, with more topics. Please keep on watching eVidya channels and take great care of yourself. Namaskar.